All right, anatomy of the autonomic nervous system. I want to start by reminding you of some of the anatomy you know already related to the functional divisions of the nervous system and structural divisions. So we've talked about the sensory division overall, mostly focused on somatic senses. We'll do a little bit more with special senses. And in this section, we will talk a little bit about autonomic sensory, because there is an autonomic component to that. For motor divisions, we have talked quite a bit about somatic nervous system, both at the detail of what's happening at a skeletal muscle and the control of that in the central nervous system with the upper motor neurons involved in that. So now we're on to the last division of the autonomic nervous system, which is, I'm sorry, of the nervous system. Last functional division is the autonomic nervous system, also called the visceral, so same thing. It controls the viscera. So it doesn't control skeletal muscle, it controls smooth muscle, glands, cardiac muscle. Of the three, we'll kind of see the most, also adipose tissue. It is divided into this parasympathetic and sympathetic divisions. So that's what this week will be focused on. Again, do note there is a visceral or autonomic sensory division that we will touch upon when we get to reflexes as well. But we'll focus on the motor component. All right. So first thing we've got to do when talking about anatomy is start with kind of the control center. So the hypothalamus is the integrator for the autonomic nervous system. Besides reflexes, all autonomic control is going to go through the hypothalamus. Hypothalamus might receive information from other sensory systems, sensory cortex, amygdala. It's variable. Amygdala is related to fear processing. Um, the hypothalamus is always going to have the upper motor neuron that then contacts the lower motor neurons involved in autonomic signaling. So in that case, it's kind of similar to the somatic nervous system. Okay, there are two locations shown here for the lower motor neuron. One is in the brainstem, so that's one option for the autonomic nervous system. The other one is in the spinal cord. So lateral horn, remember that? The ventral horn contains somatic motor nuclei. The lateral horn contains the autonomic. So autonomic nuclei of the lower motor neuron are in any of those two locations. By two, I mean the spinal cord could be anywhere, could be not just this one small region here. We'll go back to where the spinal cord this is located. Okay, so the lower motor neuron, I think I said, is not just one neuron. You can see there's two neurons going out from this spinal cord or brainstem here. And that is because there is a synapse. Where the cell bodies of the synapse are located, the second neuron is called the ganglia, right? Ganglia means a collection of cell bodies in the peripheral nervous system. In this case, this is an autonomic ganglia, right? Because it's in the autonomic nervous system, opposed to like the dorsal root ganglia. So, because there are two neurons here, we need two different names for them. There's one that is before the ganglia. This one is called the preganglionic neuron. So that's what's shown in red here, before the ganglia. The axon terminals of this neuron are within the ganglia. The second neuron is called the postganglionic or ganglionic neuron. You'll see it called either one. Here I have it clarified. Postganglionic fibers of that ganglionic neuron. The neuron is, the cell body of it is in the ganglia. Either term you want to use, either postganglion or ganglionic neuron is fine. These are the neurons that travel out to well, out or in to the viscera. So the effectors are those visceral organs, smooth muscle glands. Smooth muscle, for example, could be in blood vessels, digestive system is another example. Um, okay, so here we've got some neurons coming out from the spinal cord. Clearly, this is the brain and spinal cord. Just want to label it out of the way down here. Um, Hopefully you recognize a few things here. So the red neuron I'm about to label is a somatic motor neuron, targeting skeletal muscle, right? The cell body is in the ventral horn of the spinal cord. Okay, everything else here is going to be autonomic nervous system. So anything in green, but there's two divisions. So this one is part of the parasympathetic. So is this. So parasympathetic um, neurons are located in the cranium. This is actually the brainstem, as well as in the sacrum. For this reason, the parasympathetic nervous system is sometimes called the craniosacral region. And it would not just be that one little neuron, but like this kind of whole region like that. Okay, you can see here the preganglionic neuron and the ganglionic neuron. And notice for the parasympathetic fibers, the preganglionic neuron is long. So it's very long. That ganglia is very near the effector organ. So that's a difference between parasympathetic and sympathetic, other than where they're located within the spinal cord as well. The green lines here, this is then the sympathetic. It's located basically in the thoracic and lumbar regions. And for that reason, it's also called the thoracolumbar division. The ganglia are closer to the spinal cord. So this is a short preganglionic neuron. This thing, something different's happening here. This is the adrenal gland. There's no synapse for the adrenal gland. So this is the preganglionic neuron going all the way to the adrenal gland. And we'll come back to that. What's going on there? What's going on in short is the adrenal gland is going to release hormone into the bloodstream, opposed to the rest of these are releasing neurotransmitter, right? So we'll come back to that important point. Okay. Last thing I want to show on this image is the neurotransmitters involved. I'm going to do acetylcholine in this color, so I'm just going to label it up here. You already know acetylcholine, it's what's released from somatic motor neurons. It's also released from every single preganglionic neuron, even on the adrenal medulla. Okay, all preganglionic neurons. Also, the postganglionic fibers from the ganglionic neurons of the parasympathetic nervous system. So when in doubt, guess ACH. Do one more color here. So what's left is right here. The sympathetic nervous system releases primarily norepinephrine as a neurotransmitter. As a hormone, it's going to release norepinephrine and epinephrine. This is adrenaline and noradrenaline. So sympathetic, ganglionic. So that means that's what it releases onto its target organ. So it's gonna be really important to look at the receptors that are present in at each of these locations. I would just give you a preview of that now. There's going to be different receptors located, and actually it's the same one here as it is here, um, in the pre and post ganglionic locations. So wherever I have a black, we'll just label it now. That's a nicotinic ACH receptor. Here is going to be a different ACH receptor. Let's just label it now. Muscarinic HGH receptor. And last but not least, we'll do yellow for, oh, nope, don't want that. Alpha and beta adrenergic. Adrenergic receptors. Okay, we'll see this more in detail.